Hello everyone and welcome back to the 5th season of Dungeons & Death Battles as we continue on our journey to find the most lethal monster in all of Dungeons & Dragons. In this season, as with those that have come before it, 16 deadly dungeon denizens will be facing off against each other until we find the most barbaric of the bunch. This, of course, being the CR5 season. The rules of the arena are simple. Combatants start 30 feet apart. There is no fleeing the arena, no outside influence is allowed, and victory is achieved by kill only. Due to some very specific shenanigans last season, the kobold mob that runs the arena have seen it fit to install a 150-foot high ceiling, and have ruled that any creature leaving the arena via any means of teleportation, astral trickery, or the like must return to the material plane within one turn or be disqualified, and likely consumed by the arena arbiters. We don't know exactly what they are, but they sound absolutely terrifying, so best obey the rules. And today, the arena will once again be graced by glorious combat, as the CR5 qualifying rounds forge their path onwards. And what a battle we are in for, as today we play host to two spectacularly violent specimens. In today's blue corner, a familiar form floats, only to be revealed by the stench of rotten flesh. This can only mean the arrival of the Beholder Zombie, a truly terrifying undead aberration that has risen back from its grave amongst the stars to fight for your pleasure in the arena. This horror will be joined by an equally hideous foe, a creature with such vile reputation that we beseech you all to stay calm, lest it wriggles its way into your dreams and subjugates your very spirit to unrelenting torment. I, of course, speak of the Night Hag, a nefarious fiend that will be representing today from the red corner. As usual, the teams of each respective fighter are currently making their final preparations. An unusual yet strangely familiar gnome can be seen tending to the Beholder Zombie, while the hag appears to be communing with its coven sisters as they formulate a plan to destroy their undead opponent. While the teams brood on their plots and ploys, it does look like we have time for a combatant analysis. So, let's jump across to the blue corner and the Beholder Zombie and see just what makes it tick. So the Beholder Zombie, this floating orb of pestilence and unlife, enters the arena with a 93 hit point average and a respectable 15 AC. These are backed up by immunities to poison damage as well as the exhaustion, poisoned, and prone conditions. The Beholder Zombie has a decent 14 in strength and 16 in constitution, although its other stats are rather lackluster, with 8 in dexterity and wisdom, a 3 in intelligence, and a 5 in charisma, pushing its average down into dangerously low territory. That being said, this oddity does have proficiency in wisdom, which at least grants it a +2 to wisdom saving throws against what would usually be a -1 modifier. Even with these glaring downsides, the zombified Beholder is incredibly hard to kill and keep down. Its undead fortitude giving it the ability to rise again should it crash down to 0 hit points. As if damage reduces the Beholder Zombie to 0 hit points, it makes a constitution saving throw, DC 5 plus damage taken, unless the damage is radiant or from a critical hit. On a successful save, the zombie drops to 1 hit point instead. This ability could be an absolute saving grace in the arena, and when coupled with this aberrant undead's famous eye rays, it could make for a potent combination indeed. These eye rays should be memorable to those of you who have witnessed any spectator battles in the past, and these beams proved extremely deadly, carrying the mini Beholderkin to many a victory. The zombified version flexes a similar set of eye rays to its living relatives, although it does up the spectator in potency. These rays come in the form of paralyzing, fear, enervation, and disintegration, with each other than paralyzing delivering a solid amount of damage should an opponent fail their saving throw. This undying Oculus can blast away with 2 eye rays with its multi-attack, making it extremely powerful and capable of stacking up conditions on an enemy, something that has proved lethal in previous Beholder battles. But by no means does that mean the Beholder Zombie is in for an easy ride in today's battle, as it faces off today against everybody's favourite grandma, none other than the Night Hag. These creatures are nefarious indeed, and wield a potent combination of spells that they can use to bring their opponents to their knees. The Night Hag enters the arena with an average hit point pool of 112, as well as an AC of 17, while also boasting resistances to cold and fire damage, as well as a complete immunity to the charmed condition. The Night Hag also has an extremely strong stat block, with an 18 in strength, being surrounded by other relatively high stats, with 16s in constitution, intelligence, and charisma, with dexterity and wisdom receiving 15 and 14 respectively, giving the Night Hag a very, very well-rounded set of stats indeed, which should kit it out quite nicely for combat in the arena. As mentioned before, the Night Hag has a load of spells at its disposal, with Detect Magic, Etherealness, and 4th level Magic Missile all being available at will, and with Phantasmal Killer and Plane Shift being available to it twice per day. Now usually the Hag would also come bundled with a load of other abilities, usually referred to as Coven Magic, although as the arena rules stipulate, no outside influence is allowed, and therefore it will not be able to benefit from the assistance from its Coven sisters, although they will be more than welcome to cheer on their sibling from the pits. The Night Hag also possesses a Soul Bag, which is used to facilitate its Nightmare Haunting ability, although this is unlikely to provide it any major benefits in the arena. On top of everything else, the Hag is also very capable in melee combat, with a multi-attack that allows it to use its claws twice, which on a successful hit will be dealing 2d8 plus 4 points of slashing damage. So a very respectable kit here from the Night Hag, which is worth mentioning as well, especially in this battle, also boasts magic resistance, which does mean that the Hag has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. Does of course include Beholder Eye Ray attacks. But do remember, the Night Hag is a supernatural fiend, and any of them here today could be looking to take control of audience members. So our Kobold crew firmly recommend you picking up a tinfoil hat of nightmare resistance to stave your mind off from the influence of any hags that may be looking to infiltrate during the battle, as well as, of course, our famous anti-beholder goggles, as beholderkin have been known to flail around violently both in victory and in death, and those eye rays are best left blocked. And this one's a zombie, so we really don't know what it's going to be able to do. But with all that said, it does look like our teams are ready. The Coven sisters have seemingly agreed on a final plan, and the mysterious gnome has finished stitching parts back onto the beholder zombie. Clearly one of those eye stalks there was about to fall off, but it does look like it has been stitched back into place. Our kobolds are ready, and I can see the flag down there in the arena waving, signifying that things are about to begin, which does of course mean that it is time to roll for initiative. And so without further ado, it is time to kick things off in this qualifying battle, Beholder Zombie versus Night Hag, as we roll in for initiative, starting off with the Beholder Zombie and its -1 modifier. So rolling in right here, Beholder Zombie, it does have a -1 to this, and that is going to be a 13 -1 for 12. Not too bad. We've certainly seen lower rolls secure the initiative in the arena, but we do now hand over to the Night Hag, which has a very strong +5 to its initiative modifier. So rolling in is looking to beat the Beholder Zombie's 12 total, and with a 19 +5 for 24, the Night Hag is absolutely going to secure pole position here tonight, which means that the creature is going to waste absolutely no time at all in barreling across the arena to the Beholder Zombie's position, where it will start things off by unleashing a pair of claw attacks. And so first one coming through, +7 to this, looking to beat an AC of 15. And again, it's liking those 19s. Of course, that +7 topping that up to a 26. An absolute surefire strike there from the Night Hag. Let's see what kind of damage it puts on the table. There's 2d8 plus 4 points of slashing damage roll in. Let's see what it's got. And that is a sturdy amount of damage right there, with a 5 and a 3 for 8, plus 4 for 12 points of damage, which will drop the Beholder Zombie from 93 to 81 hit points. But that is not all, of course, as the Night Hag does have its second claw attack to roll in with. Once again, +7 to this, looking to be an AC of 15. And a 16 plus 7 for 23. Another secured strike right there, as yet another 2d8 plus 4 points of slashing damage imprint themselves upon the Beholder Zombie. And that is a 6 and a 4. Of course, totaling 10 plus that 4 modifier to make for 14 total, which will be further reducing the Beholder Zombie's hit points, dropping it from 81 to 67. And that will bring an end to the Night Hag's turn there. It'll be very, very pleased with what it's achieved thus far. Those claws proving themselves as truly lethal armament, as the Beholder Zombie finds itself shredded and flayed at the very hands of the Night Hag. In fact, it even looks like the previously stitched on eye stalk has been shredded to such a degree that it looks to be falling off once again, which is quite possibly more frustrating for the mysterious finger in the pits than the creature itself. But with all that said, we will be handing over to the Beholder Zombie as it looks to unleash its wrath against the Night Hag. And I can see from my vantage point up here that the Beholder Zombie's eye rays do appear to be charging themselves up, ready for a blast. And so we will be rolling in a d4 to see which of these get to fire, with 1 being Paralyzing Ray, 2 Fear Ray, 3 Innovation Ray, and 4 Disintegration Ray. Let's see what it gets. And that is going to be a 4 4 right there, which does mean that the Beholder Zombie is going to be firing off with a Disintegration Ray, the most potent damage-wise of all of the Beholder Zombie's rays, which does mean the Night Hag must now make a DC 14 Dexterity saving throw, and upon a failure, it will be subject to 5d10 points of force damage, a truly devastating amount that could potentially turn the tide of the battle even in this early stage. And so the Night Hag must now roll in with a DC 14 Dexterity saving throw. However, it does get advantage due to its magic resistance. So Night Hag rolling in a +2 to this, a +2 modifier to this save. Again, looking to be that DC of 14 on advantage. And a 13 +2 for 15 is going to carry it just above that saving throw threshold, which does, of course, mean that it succeeds and will now only be subject to half of that 5d10 points of force damage, which is a much, much better outcome than being subject to the full brunt. Okay, so 5d10 points of force damage rolling in. Night Hag taking half due to its save. That is quite possibly a good thing too. With 2 sets of 7 and 3s totaling for 20, plus that 6 for 26 points of damage total, which will of course be halved down to 13 due to the Night Hag save. Although that will still drop the Fiend from 112 to 99 hit points. Still an incredibly potent strike there from the Beholder Zombie, and it still of course has another eye ray to roll in with, so let's see what it gets. And that is a 2, which is of course the Fear Ray. And now this time the Night Hag must make a DC 14 Wisdom saving throw. Upon failure, it will be subject to 3d8 points of psychic damage and the incredibly dangerous Frightened condition, which will be impacting it until the end of its next turn should it fail. So Night Hag +2 to this again. Of course, magic resistance, meaning that this is on advantage. And a 19 +2 for 21, offsetting that natural 1 on the second dice there. Thank the hells for advantage on this roll right here. That could have been nasty for the Night Hag, but it has staved off the Beholder Zombie's Fear Ray this time. And with all that said, the Beholder Zombie is going to act on instinct. Its low intelligence, of course, being that it is driven purely by what makes its now undead psychology tick, and it is going to use its movement to boost itself up into the air, attempting to get out of the way of the Night Hag and its claws, which does, of course, mean that the Night Hag will now be able to make an opportunity attack against its undead foe, and that it will absolutely do, as it looks to roll in right here. A +7 looking to beat the Beholder Zombie's AC of 15 as it leaves melee range. And a 5 +7 for 12 does mean that the claw misses, and the Beholder Zombie does make it out of melee range without taking any more damage. The Night Hag quite possibly still a little bit blind from that first Disintegration Ray, of which we do find this a pertinent point to remind you that Beholder Zombie goggles are available, and if you have them, make sure you've got them on, as you never know what beam might be sent blasting your way. But with that said, we will put an end to the Beholder Zombie's turn as we do hand over to the Night Hag, which is going to cackle to itself as it realizes that the Beholder Zombie is starting to flee upwards into the rafters, as the Night Hag is not only a melee monster, but it of course has a plethora of ranged attacks that it can bring to bear. That is exactly what it is going to start to do. And the Night Hag is going to utilize Phantasmal Killer. This is a spell that taps into the nightmares of a creature that it can see within range, creating an illusion of its deepest, darkest fears. This does mean that the Beholder Zombie will be subject to a DC 14 Wisdom saving throw, and on a failed save will be taking 4d10 points of psychic damage, as well as having disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls for the duration, of course taking half damage on a successful save. Now the Beholder Zombie does not have magic resistance, and therefore we'll be rolling this straight, again looking to beat a DC 14 Wisdom saving throw. Of course, its proficiency in this allowing it a +2 instead of what would otherwise have been a -1. So Beholder Zombie rolling in right here, DC 14 Wisdom saving throw +2 modifier, and a natural 20. The Beholder Zombie does not believe in fear, and it simply shrugs aside the Night Hag's invasive efforts to break down its mind. The zombie has its eye on one thing only, and that is of course victory, and it does not have time for the Night Hag's wily ways. However, the undead Oculus will still be subject to half of 4d10 points of psychic damage, so rolling that in right here. And that is a mighty good thing too, with 2 9s for 18 plus 10 for 28, of course topped up by that 4 in the corner there to make for 32 points of damage, which will of course be halved down to 16 points of damage total. Still a very, very strong attack there, as it does at at least rend through some of the Beholder Zombie's remaining consciousness, dropping it from 67 to 51 hit points. But the Beholder Zombie, of course, resisting any other adverse effects. And that will, for now, bring an end to the Nightmare Hag's turn. And with that, we are going to hand over to the Beholder Zombie, which is going to continue to float upwards towards the rafters. Its 20-foot fly speed not exactly proving too effective, as even after this move, it is still only 40 feet above the Night Hag, so by no means outside of its range. But the Beholder is prioritizing one thing, and one thing only, as we know, and that is firing off yet more eye rays. So first of the bunch coming in, let's see what it gets. And that is a 4 once again, which does mean that another volley of disintegrating rays will be firing forth, subjecting the Night Hag to yet more force damage. But the Nightmare Hag's magic resistance, of course, kicking in here, granting advantage to the save once more. So again, a DC 14 dexterity saving throw on this one, plus 2 to save, up on advantage. And that is, again, some very strong rolls from the Night Hag there, with a 17 and a 19. Of course, taking that 19 on advantage, topping that up to 21 with its plus 2 modifier, securing yet another successful save against that disintegration ray. Although, as we know, the Night Hag will still be subject to half of 5d10 points of force damage, which is still a very, very potent attack to be hit with. So rolling in, let's see what the Beholder Zombie can do. And again, some decent output right there, with that 9 and 1 for 10, plus the natural 10 there for 20, plus 5 and 9 for 29 points of damage total, with 29, of course, being halved and rounded down to make for 14 points of damage, which is actually slightly higher than last time, and we'll be dropping the Night Hag from 99 to 85 hit points, as magical energy lights up the arena, creating a Technicolor show for those of you in the audience today. And the Beholder Zombie does still have yet another eye ray to roll in with, so let's see what it gets. And it's another 2! It does really like rolling in between these numbers, with that fear ray, of course, being brought to bear once more, forcing the Night Hag to make yet another DC 14 wisdom saving throw, although magic resistance provides advantage. But advantage or not, the Night Hag this time has failed and has succumbed to fear. The Beholder Zombie turning the tables on the Night Hag, utilizing its own tactics against it. And now, first things first, the Night Hag will now be subject to 3d8 points of psychic damage. So rolling that in right here. Wow, and that is a very, very strong hit from the Beholder Zombie. 2 8s there for 16, plus that 1 for 17, which is going to further reduce the Night Hag from 85 to 68 hit points. With the icing on the cake here, of course, being that the Night Hag is now frightened, which does mean that it cannot willingly move closer to the source of its fear, and it has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls while the source of its fear is within line of sight, although it is going to do its very best to mitigate this. And so with that, we will bring an end to the Beholder Zombie's turn, as we hand back over to a now terrified Night Hag, which, while the condition sweeps over its psyche, it does seem that the creature is unperturbed and will be continuing on with the battle. And it is going to attempt to roll in with yet another phantasmal killer, the second of its 2 uses per day, which again will subject the Beholder Zombie to a DC 14 wisdom saving throw in order to avoid the effects of yet again 4d10 points of psychic damage, as well as disadvantage in any ability checks and attack rolls it makes for the duration, although it seems pretty unaffected by the latter half, as most of its attacks do rely on forcing saving throws instead. But anyway, rolling in, phantasmal killer, Beholder Zombie, looking to beat a DC 14 wisdom save with its plus 2 modifier, and a 13 plus 2 for 15 is gonna secure that right there, which does mean that once again it will be taking half of 4d10 points of psychic damage. So rolling in yet again, another pretty decent strike there from the Night Hag and Phantasmal Killer, with 7 plus 5 for 12, plus that 2 for 14, of course topped up by that 10 for 24 points of damage, which will be halved down to 12, as that second barrage of Phantasmal Killer reduces the Beholder Zombie from 51 to 39 hit points. Its hit point pool being continually whittled away here by the Night Hag and its potent magics. But with that, we do once again hand back over to the Beholder Zombie, which will be continuing to float upwards like a rotten undead air balloon. It is continuing on its upward trajectory, as it knows this is the best chance that it has of staying alive. And once again, it's going to roll in with 2 more eye rays. Let's see what we get. And a 4 again! It's loving its disintegration rays. But why wouldn't you? This thing is hardwired to kill and destroy, and what better way to do that than to unleash disintegration blasts? And so we all know the drill by now. Night Hag, DC 14 dexterity saving throw, magic resistance granting advantage with a plus 2 modifier. And that is a 19 yet again, plus 2 for 21. Does mean that it succeeds. and will only be subject to half of that 5d10 points of force damage. So rolling in once more. And again, a good all-round strike there from the Beholder Zombie. It really has been delivering well on its damage output, with the 1 on the 9 there for 10. The 8 and the 6 coming together for 14, bringing the total up to 24. Plus, of course, that 5 there for 29 total, which will be once again halved and rounded down to make for another 14 points of damage against the Night Hag, dropping it from 68 to 54 hit points, as the Beholder Zombie also looks to be bringing the Hag down bit by bit each round. And it does, of course, have yet another Eye Ray to roll in with, and that is a 3 this time, which is going to be Enervation Ray. And so now this will force a DC 14 Constitution saving throw against the Night Hag. Failure will mean it takes 3d6 points of necrotic damage and will have the poisoned condition. And while poisoned, it will be unable to regain hit points. On a success, it will take half of the damage only. So again, rolling in for the Night Hag, DC 14 Constitution saving throw here. A +3 modifier to this one, yet again at advantage. And 18 plus 3 for 21 is going to mean that it saves itself here, staving off the poison condition and the bulk of that damage, meaning that it will only be taking half of 3d6 points of damage here. Again, magic resistance coming in clutch in this battle for the Night Hag. And with 2 2s for 4, plus that 3 for 7, that is going to be halved and rounded down to just 3 points of damage, which will drop the Night Hag down to 51 hit points. As the Beholder Zombie continues to float up, it finds itself 60 feet above ground at this point in time, and as we hand over to the Night Hag, the Beholder Zombie realizes that this is definitely not high enough to avoid attacks. And the Night Hag is now out of Phantasmal Killers, which does mean that it is going to divert over to using its Magic Missile, which it will be casting at 4th level. And now, as standard of Magic Missile, the creature creates 3 glowing darts of magical force, with each one dealing 1d4 plus 4 points of force damage to the target. The spell creates 1 more dart for each spell slot level above 1. Does mean that at level 4, the Night Hag will be generating 3 additional darts, which does bring the total damage output of this attack to 6d4 plus 6 points of force damage. And as with Magic Missile, there is no roll to hit. It just automatically strikes. A homing beacon, a heat-seeking missile, homing in on its foe, and the foe, of course, being none other than the Beholder Zombie, which, without being able to do anything, will be subject to 6d4 plus 6 points of force damage. So rolling in, let's see what happens here. And that is not the highest overall output at all, with 4 1s right there for 4, plus 2 for 6, and topped up by that 3 for 9. Although the +6 modifier does bring that all the way up to 15 points of damage, which will be reducing the Beholder Zombie from 39 to 24 hit points, as the Night Hag cackles to itself once more, knowing full well that the Beholder Zombie has nowhere to hide. Although we do hand over to the Rotting Monster's turn once more, as it continues upwards, and we rolled in to see which of its Eye Rays get used next. And of course, who could have predicted that one? There it is, once again, a 4, which does mean that the Disintegration Ray is being brought back to the table. That's first and center. We might as well stop rolling these. The Beholder Zombie seems set on its path of doing exactly what it wants. Of course, rolling in right here for the Night Hag. DC 14 Dexterity saving throw on advantage, +2 modifier. Ooh, but a 9 plus 2 on advantage for 11. Does mean that this is the first time that the Night Hag has failed its saving throw against the Beholder Zombie's Disintegration Ray, meaning that it will now be subject to the full brunt of 5d10 points of force damage. It is a single point above insta-kill threshold here, and so will avoid being reduced to dust. Although this is not the best position for the Night Hag to be in. It has resisted this magic for so long, only to be thwarted right here towards the end. Could it be that the Night Hag is tiring of its combat against the Beholder Zombie? Well, either way, some damage is about to be thrown down, and that is 5d10 points of force damage to be exact. So rolling in, and again, a very, very strong hit right there, with that 9 and 5 coming together for 14, plus those 2 3s, of course, for 20, topped up by that 10 for 30 points of damage, which this time will not be halved, as the Night Hag takes the full loaded force of 30 points of force damage, which will drop it from 51 to 21 hit points. It will absolutely have hated that, as the crowd goes absolutely wild to see a fully unleashed Disintegration Ray. And of course, the Beholder Zombie's turn is not over just yet, as it fires in with its second Eye Ray. It cannot have 4 twice, I'm afraid. It is keen, but it can have 1. Which is the Paralyzing Ray. And this will force a DC 14 Constitution saving throw. A failure, of course, subjecting the Night Hag to the paralyzed condition. So rolling in a very crucial save right here. +3 to this, yet again at advantage. And a 10 plus 3 for 13. does mean that the Night Hag will be paralyzed as it has failed its saving throw. And this means that the creature is incapacitated. Its speed is 0. It automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws. Attack rolls against it have advantage, and any attack rolls that hit are automatically critical hits if the attacker is within 5 feet of the paralyzed victim. This is not good for the Night Hag, but that will bring an end to the Beholder Zombie's turn. That could have been a crucial turning point right there. As we do hand over to the Night Hag, it will spend its turn in complete lockdown paralysis. And as we come to the end of its turn, it will get to make that saving throw once again. So let's see if it can break free. Once again, its magic resistance at least granting it advantage against this save. DC 14 Constitution saving throw to break free from this paralyzing ray. And 2 5s! The Night Hag has rolled in with 2 5s, which of course only tops up to 8. Advantage proving no good here as it remains in its paralysis. The Beholder Zombie has absolutely rendered the Night Hag completely useless here. The paralyzing ray being brought to full force against its opponent, as the Nightmare Hag, even on advantage, is seemingly unable to break free from the magical bonds bestowed upon it by the Beholder Zombie. And with that, we do hand back over to the Beholder Zombie. Its opponent completely unable to do anything in front of it here. It is in fact going to change up its tactic and is going to begin to float further back down towards the Night Hag. It's menacing more, snapping furiously as the zombie side of its psyche detects a free meal, and the creature is going to float downwards. But of course, as it does, it's going to fire in with 2 more eye rays. So rolling in with the first, remembering here that the paralyzed Night Hag is going to be automatically failing strength and dexterity saving throws. A 4 right here from the Beholder Zombie could be brutal, but it has at least rolled in with a 2 here, which is that fear ray to start things off with. And this does mean that the Night Hag will be getting to at least roll in with this. At least roll in against a DC 14 wisdom saving throw to resist the psychic output from the Beholder Zombie. And a 16 plus 2 for 18 does mean that that is a success, and it staves off the effects of the fear ray. However, the Beholder Zombie does have another eye ray to roll in with. Can't have 2 twice. And that's going to be another 4, which is the disintegration ray. Of course, the Beholder Zombie pulls that out of the bag as what could be its final attack here. Of course, the paralyzed condition, meaning that even with its magic resistance, the Night Hag is going to automatically fail its dexterity saving throw against disintegration ray, meaning that it will be subject to the full force of 5d10 points of force damage once again. The Beholder Zombie saving up this combination, this crucial combo. Could this be it right here for the Night Hag? Let's see what the Beholder Zombie's got. No saving throws needed. Paralyzed, meaning that the Night Hag automatically fails. And so rolling in right here, 5d10 points of force damage versus the Night Hag. Can the Beholder Zombie do it right here? Disintegration ray firing in. And that looks like it could be a punishing roll indeed, with 2 6s for 12, topped up by that 4 for 16, plus 3 for 19. With that 5, the cherry on top, pulling that all the way up to 25 points of damage, which does mean that in a shocking turn of events right here, the Beholder Zombie has switched the roles in the arena, firing off of the disintegration ray. The Night Hag's paralysis meaning that it is simply unable to avoid this wash of force energy as the potent ray strikes down upon it, the beam cutting through its very atomic structure as it reduces its opponent, the Night Hag, to nothing more than a pile of fine dust, which is beginning to mingle in with the sand of the arena, leaving no trace of its opponent behind whatsoever, which does of course mean that the Beholder Zombie has taken its first step up the ladder in the CR5 League and will be advancing through into the quarterfinals, where we will be getting a truly macabre quarterfinal round, in which of course the Beholder Zombie will be going toe-to-toe with the Flesh Golem. A battle of the reanimated beasties. What more could we ask for? And what a battle of twists and turns that was. And I really hope you enjoyed watching that one. And if you did, of course, please consider dropping a like on the video, commenting down below, and subscribing to the channel for more battles. battles. And I do hope you enjoyed watching the Beholder Zombie achieve victory here tonight in the arena. And I of course hope you'll join me next time when the Balgura takes on the Half Dragon. Yet another exciting arena qualifier. And if you did want to check out some extra behind the scenes stuff, we do have a Patreon which hosts things like free polls every now and again. So head over there and check that out. But other than that, thank you all once again very, very much for watching. And I will see you in another video very soon.